Hello and welcome to the News9 Plus show on the world's first news and current affairs OTT platform, News9 Plus. The RG Kar Medical College rape and murder case has shaken India. This case has also put the Mamata Banerjee-led government on the back foot over the handling of the case. The Supreme Court is monitoring investigations, and the Supreme Court has pointed out several discrepancies in the investigation. They have raised questions about the way the Kolkata police has handled this sensitive case. Let's look at the 5 important questions the Supreme Court has raised. Question number 1. Why was there a delay in filing the first information report or the FIR? What actions have been taken against the principal? That's question number 2. Question number 3. Why was the trainee doctor's family told that she had committed suicide? Question number 4. Why was the crime scene allowed to be tampered with? And finally, question number 5. How did the state government allow a mob to run riot? And to discuss these questions, I have with me today my colleague Brijesh Pandey in the studio, Mr. A K Jain, former DGP Uttar Pradesh Police, and Dr Dinesh Rao, forensic expert and ex-chief forensic pathologist. Gentlemen, welcome to the News9 Plus show. Brijesh, when was the last time you saw a Supreme Court literally monitor investigations on a daily basis like this?
Well, I mean, the case was extremely shocking one, and
Yes.
I honestly don't recall when was the last one Supreme Court took so moto cognizance of something that has happened.
Right.
And the way police was conducting the investigation, it was very clear right from the second this barbaric
Yes.
incident came to light that all is not well. And the way the principal of the school, the hospital conducted himself, the medical college, and the way the police conducted
Right.
themselves, and the way the FIR was written at a later point of time, the way the family members were misled,
Yes.
saying that your daughter has committed suicide only when they saw the body, they saw laceration, marks of injury and
Right.
all, and then
Right.
say that this is not a suicide but murder. And the fact of the matter is, our channel reporter went and spoke to the manager of the crematorium where the dead body was burned. He said that pressure was put on him to make sure that this body was burned first before other bodies would come
Absolutely.
before there. There's a queue when you go to the crematorium. So
Right.
all these questions raises, or this act on the part of the police and all, raised a very severe doubt on the way the entire investigation was done. And what was also shocking, Sandeep, was the fact that that the principal who was in the eye of the storm was changed, and he was made principal to another medical college, which was extremely shocking.
Shocking indeed, as this case has been. It's the Nirbhaya case of 2024, that horrible, shocking case that happened, that shook all of India 12 years ago. But I want to ask Dr. Dinesh Rao this question. Dr. Rao, as an expert, when you're looking at this case, what are the loopholes that you really see in this? The way, the crime scene was tampered, for instance, people, running all around the crime scene, mobs even, rioting next to the place where evidence is meant to be collected. What are the big glaring lapses that you saw as a forensics expert?
The biggest lapse is, as you rightly pointed out, it's of course the crime scene, is because that is more important to first identify the perpetrators or the person who is responsible for the so-called crime, that is the rape and murder. So, but here to identify the person, the very important evidence which we usually look for are the material, the biological and the trace evidences, which are usually based on those fingerprints and the so-called the DNA. So now you can understand, if so many people come in and go out of the crime scene, so where do we are when time of investigation is concerned, irrespective of the type of agencies which do the investigations, it will be definitely a deterrent with all those tampering or so-called compromise or trespassing of the crime scene. And I think the perpetrators who have done it, they very well know what they were doing. And secondly, and the body, in cases of this nature, either the police or the family, the police wouldn't have allowed the body to be cremated. But it is contrary to that so-called the norms. That is, the police have hurriedly and forced them for the cremation. This is a strange thing which I observe in this country. All these things clearly point out. And the last and the most important thing is more than 7,000 mobs coming and vandalizing a crime scene. And apart from that, I see that even the hospitals been broken. And definitely I see that it's a larger conspiracy. There may be something which they might have to conceal or try to see scared that they get exposed. That is the reason they also signed the adjacent area of the crime scene also has been destroyed. So I think definitely it is very obvious, which we have seen. I have seen thousands of cases both in India and abroad, and never witnessed circumstances of this nature in a rape and murder case.
Absolutely. It's, it smells fishy from the very beginning, and this circumstances that you pointed out is possibly the reason the Supreme Court is now monitoring this case every few days. But Mr. Jain, I want to ask you this thing about, the larger question of forensics that, we keep talking about in every case, that we've seen reports. There's been a very significant report in 2021 by this website called India's Pen, which said that each year 7.5 lakh cases are closed because of lack of evidence. And forensics is something that is, India has been very late to wake up in, and the government has been saying all the right things that, in a couple of years, forensics are going to be all over, crime scenes are going to be tackled scientifically. The BNS also talks about any case that has an imprisonment of over 7 years, forensics has to be part of this. Is this, do you believe in this particular case in Kolkata, is this a case of that chalta hai attitude that we always see, with the way crime scenes are handled or forensics are not given importance? Or does this suggest a deeper conspiracy? What's your take on this?
There are no two opinions that it's a deeper conspiracy. This crime did not take place in some remotest part of West Bengal. It has taken place in the heart of the capital of West Bengal, where forensic science laboratories there, forensic teams are there, sniffer dogs are there. Why can't they visit? Why can't they visit within 1 hour? What was the problem? Why were they not informed? Why was the sniffer dog not pressed into action? Why fingerprints were not taken, as Mr. Rao was just mentioning? Scene of crime is very important in such a ghastly crime. It's not an ordinary crime. I am again repeating that this crime has not taken place in some remotest corner of West Bengal. It doesn't mean that it should not get importance, but a doctor is being killed inside a medical college. Doctor fraternity should have been there. If they can't find out that she has been raped and murdered, and they think that she has committed suicide, God save this country from these doctors. What kind of they conduct postmortems, they conduct operations, they conduct preliminary examination of so many patients, and on the basis of that, treatment is given. So the condition in which the girl was lying, it makes it very obvious. It makes it very obvious to a layman also that
absolutely
she has been raped. It is not a case of unnatural death.
Yes, Mr. Jain.
It's a clear-cut case of rape and murder.
And this suggests that this case would have been compromised to some extent, which is what the big question we're asking today, is that the case has been compromised. There's evidence of it being tampered. Evidence has been tampered. The crime scene has been tampered. Brijesh, tell us what the Supreme Court actually observed today. Why was it so significant, the observations that they made today afternoon about this case?
Basically they asked about, the timings of the postmortem. When was the postmortem done? When was the FIR filed? And they had great objection to the fact that, first the postmortem was done and then later on the GD entries were made, the FIR was filed, and why was there delay in informing the parents? What was the role of the, the police stations and also the administration of the hospital? See, the fact is that, Sandeep, in this particular case, it's not the lack of forensics which is hindering the investigation. What is happening in this particular case is, it is lack of will, it is lack of intent, and the intent which is coming out is definitely not in consonant with the way investigation is being done.
That's a very important point you mentioned.
Mr. Jain has very rightly mentioned that these are doctors, these are not like people like
these
you
are not lay persons.
Laypersons.
And they're not. This was not certainly an incident in a village in India.
Exactly. So they know what happened, and the fact of the matter is that the bigger question is, why were the parents lied? If they have been straightforward about it, that this incident has taken place, they should have informed the parents then, and the FIR was registered and a proper inquest which have been carried out. I think there would have been no problem. Crime-free society is utopia. Every society, crime is there. Whether you are in America or in this, it is how you intend to solve it. Now, Mamata Banerjee, late last night, the West Bengal government has removed most of the, the principals, the vice principals, and people were there occupying the keep. Why wasn't this done on the day one?
Absolutely.
And
I think it's the political heat in this case that's actually propelled the government to take action.
And that is the reason why question marks are being raised.
Now the big question here, Mr. Jain, is, as Brijesh pointed out, that this case has been vitiated from day one. Literally from the first hour of this investigation that should have begun, it didn't begin. It was They tried to pass it off as a suicide. All manner of deviations have been followed. But as a professional, as a police officer, do you believe that the evidence that exists now, whatever has been collected by the CBI, is it enough for the CBI to nail the accused?
I won't be able to comment on this. I hope that they are able to nail the accused, or if there are a number of accused in the case, because till now only one person has been arrested, Sanjay Roy. I fail to understand that why was she killed. She was killed, I think, because identity of the assailant was known, and I think
Right.
she was trying to divulge something, some racket which was going on at the medical college, and that's why she was silenced. Either this person was sent to do the job, or he did it on his own. He must be involved in the racket. But one thing is certain, that deliberately she was killed. She was tortured, and so many injuries were there. Today also, autopsy report was not put before the Supreme Court.
Right.
And this is astonishing. And the way the goons attacked the medical college, TMC people are saying that they are BJP and communists. Why will they attack doctors? Why will they attack the protesters? They
Right.
are with the protesters. Why will they attack them? So this is sheer. I can use one word, and that will explain everything. It's a functioning of a cartel. Cartel
Right.
functioning in Bengal.
Right, a cartel that's functioning that possibly wanted to hide traces of what happened over there. But Brijesh, as Mr. Jain mentioned, there are a lot of things in this case that simply don't add up. Like he mentioned this thing about murder. Why would you want to murder someone? And not just the murder, but the torture. Why would you torture a person as brutally as this doctor was in Kolkata?
I would just also like to add one more thing, Sandeep. The fact is that, like now, since we are living in a social media age
Yes.
where, every second is under a microscopic gaze, there
Right.
also, it gives an enormous potential for misuse or, sending out wrong information.
Absolutely.
That as Chief Justice of India made a very important observation when you said that 150 milligram of
right.
semen, and then it was said, like, it's 151 ml, and
Yes.
please don't believe what you read.
Don't believe
so
what
this
you
has
see on
led
social
to
media.
many
Yes.
people infer that, that it was not a case of gang rape, but it was a case of one person doing that. This is the
Yes.
inference which is being drawn from the statement of the Chief
Right.
Justice of India. See, the problem is, Sandeep, that murder, why she was murdered, is something only the investigation
Yes.
can reveal. Whether it was a known
Right.
identity, whether she stumbled upon something which pointed to a larger nexus, a
Yes.
cartel, as Mr. Jain was referring to, and that is the reason why she was asked to be silent, and then,
Right.
the rape happened because of the mental depravity of the person who was asked to. The bigger question is that the role of the principal of the medical college,
Yes.
the kind of inordinate influence this gentleman was exercising is staggering. I mean, he's been replaced from the hospital on basis of one complaint. Within 15 days, he's back
He's
there as a principal.
rehabilitated, yes.
Then again, that happens. Again, 15-20 days, or say 1 month, he's rehabilitated.
Yes.
So from what is he drawing this kind of inordinate influence is mind-boggling.
Absolutely,
And I
and
think
that-
this is the reason why, his role has come under such microscopic gaze.
Exactly, and which is why Mr. Jain mentions that there's a cartel at work, because that's how cartels work. Cartels protect people who are involved, who are key to their plans. But Mr. Jain, this extreme violence in this case, all of these unanswered questions that we are talking about, do you think any good is going to come out of this, or is this going to be yet another case that's going to be brushed under the carpet? It will be lost in this political tutu meme that's going on in the country right now.
No, I hope that action will be taken. This person might get minimum life imprisonment, or he might be hanged to death, because it's the rarest of rare case, killing a doctor. A doctor studies for 9 years, 7 years to become a doctor and to start
Yes.
practice. And they are brilliant people. They are not ordinary students. So killing a person like this and inside medical college campus, it is absolutely shameful. The way principals yesterday, when the meeting was held of the principals of medical colleges, and the way they expressed themselves that they don't feel safe. One lady principal said, that one junior doctor is threatening me and my family, and there is so much of pressure from very important people, influential lobby, to act as per their instructions. So this shows that there is a deeper rot in West Bengal in the health department, and such incidents are only such incidents take place only because when there is open rot in a system.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, if a principal is an honest man, he's a man of integrity, and everywhere there are things in order, action is being taken against corrupt people. Nobody will dare, in my opinion, to commit such a ghastly crime inside the medical college. He did
Absolutely.
it with impunity, and he knew that he will get away with it. But because it got so much of media focus, and doctors are so very agitated over it throughout
Yes.
the country, that now action is being taken. But in my opinion, rot is very deep, and drastic,
Yes.
draconian measures are required to set it right. Not
Drastic-
only in West Bengal,
Yes.
in other states also. In other states also, there is a lot of corruption in health department. There is absolutely no problem in creating a separate toilet or providing security guards for the security
Yeah,
of
for
lady
your,
doctors or
absolutely,
or a
for the
dormitory
doctors who-
dedicated to them.
Yes.
Yes.
Noted,
So,
Mr. Jain. Yeah,
it-
you've
it-
raised very
I
valid
guess-
points. I'm going to ask Dr. Rao this. Dr. Rao, Brijesh raised a very important point where he said that it doesn't matter what forensics you have at your disposal, what kind of laboratories you have, experts you have, if the will is missing, if there is no will to investigate a crime, for instance, no amount of forensics can help you. Do you agree with that in this case?
No, of course, the will is also very important, and the intention of the officers who are investigating is of prime importance. It's definitely we agree with that. But very important is the forensic. Forensic evidence is what we call it as a reliable forensic evidences.
Yes.
So reliable forensic evidences are the very important things, and in these circumstances, in the present case, that has been a more challenge, as we all know, that how the scene was tampered, and how the type of investigation, the way it was conducted, and the way it was really committed. See, the most important challenge, as I rightly pointed out earlier, that is the body itself is not there. Now we are the
Right.
investigators, whoever has come has to rely on the videographs and the photographs. And secondly, the biological evidence, especially the fingerprints and the so-called DNA evidences or the body fluids, that has the investigator, the CBI has to rely on those collected from the set of doctors, which are the appointment of the panel itself is biased. And it is from those vested interests. So, in given these circumstances, the way the outcome of the investigation is definitely it may not be encouraging. So that is what I analyze in this particular case.
Right,
here.
but Doctor, a quick follow-on question, Dr. Rao. Given the available evidence, whatever the police have collected, what the CBI has managed to collect, as a forensics expert, do you believe that it is enough to nail the guilty in this particular case?
Definitely. See, one thing, we don't know what is the type of evidence and what is the method adopted in collecting the evidences, preservation, documentation, packaging, and transportation and examination of the evidence. See, these are all this we call it as a chain of custody, that
Yes.
as how far they were able to maintain in the first instance, because the first persons who went to the scene is the local police. So if they had some, as you pointed out rightly, that the intentions are important. If they had a professional interest, definitely it will be a valuable piece of evidence. If it is unprofessional, it is a common, obvious thing within the given circumstances. Definitely the CBI, it will be difficult for them to go further with the investigations and come to a logical conclusion. It will be very difficult, and that is to nail the accused. See, even though the person has confessed, if it is not been with the material evidence to substantiate his confession, definitely you will also be let out.
You'll be also let down, as we are in this case. It looks like increasingly, Brijesh. But what is the long-term impact going to be of this case, Brijesh? Do you see some good coming out of this? This is something that we've always been asking. As horrible as this case was, after Nirbhaya as well, a whole lot of laws were modified. Exemplary punishment was handed out in the case of Nirbhaya. But 12 years later, we are asking the same questions that we were asking 12 years back.
See, Sandeep, I am of the firm opinion that 12 years down the line also we'll be asking the same set of questions. You can set up NTF, you can set up 50 other
Yes.
things, but the problem is that if you are not addressing the root cause, which is for forensics you mentioned,
Yes.
because until unless you have material evidence, today the guy says, I committed the crime. 6 months down the line when the issue goes to court,
He
he'll
does
be
a
set off
U-turn.
free.
Yes.
He says, I made
Right.
it under duress by the police. That. B, the investigate role of police. The role of police is extremely important. 90% of the time, if something bad has happened to you, your family member, or anybody at large,
Yes.
but if there is a very professional way of handling things, it assuages your feeling, say that no, the police is working in the right direction.
Absolutely.
The police is almost always working under the pressure of the ruling dispensation, whether it is
Yes.
West Bengal, whether it is Maharashtra, whether it is Uttar Pradesh, or whichever state you want to.
Right.
No state would want to implement the police reforms which has been passed by the Supreme Court.
By,
And
Mr. Jain's,
until unless Sandeep,
colleague Prakash Singh, yes.
you really work at these levels, which are
Yes.
extremely important. I think the most important when it comes to solving crime. We'll keep on repeating it. We'll keep on doing these discussions, and eventually nothing will happen.
Absolutely.
Because nobody is interested in addressing the real and the root cause of why this happens and why the majority of the time the goons get to go away free.
Absolutely. I'm going to ask Mr. Jain this last question. Mr. Jain, it all comes down to this police reforms. You think a modern, professional, reformed police force of the kind that Brijesh is suggesting is actually the root of a lot of problems that we are facing in society today, especially cases like this?
Let me tell you one thing, Kolkata police, I hold Kolkata police in very high opinion.
Yes.
CID of Kolkata police has been famous for its investigations throughout the country. We should not forget that Kolkata used to be the capital of the country.
Of the British Empire as well. Yes.
But because of, I think all these mistakes, they have been committed because of terrible political pressure on police.
Yes.
Otherwise, police will never commit such mistakes. Immediately a case of rape and murder should have been registered. Parents should have been assured that all possible action will be taken. Principal of the medical college should have been there. They should have, all the faculty should have shown empathy.
Yes.
The only way, I have been repeating it for several years, even when I was in service, I used to say that Prakash Singh case judgment,
Absolutely.
5-judge judgment of Supreme Court should be enforced. 100% it should be enforced, and you will see radical change in the functioning of police throughout the country. But none of the political parties, I will say none of the political parties,
Yes.
whether it's TMC or it is BJP or it is SP, nobody wants to dilute the hold over police. And that's the main problem.
Right, absolutely. And Mr. Jain, I must remember what Prakash Singh once told me about this. And he said that, the police forces in various states function like state forces of erstwhile princely India, where there were, little feudal armies under every ruler. And that's how the police are functioning in the absence of reforms. But thank you very much for, illuminating that burning topic of police reforms that we keep coming back to, Brijesh, after every crime, every sensational incident like this. It all boils down to police reforms and Prakash Singh versus the Union of India.
I also have my favorite anecdote of Prakash Singh, because
Yes.
I covered crime for a long duration of my journalistic career, and so I had to because of these encounters and all. So there was an encounter, and I went. I said, sir, I have to take your interview. I said, do you think, sir, there's going to be change? He said, no, there's going to be another encounter, and then there's going to be another. I was a bit taken aback. I said,
Yes.
so are you saying this on camera? He said, why? Am I wrong? And then, when he went down to describe
Yes.
the kind of pressure a policeman is facing, the kind of pressure a constable is facing, the kind of pressure a sub-inspector is facing, and there is zero investment in making them come to terms with the kind of tech advancement that has been
Yes.
made, the forensics that has been made, the ability to analyze the crime scene at one go is made. There is zero investment of them come to age with the modern age.
Absolutely.
And they say until unless that police reform is implemented, there is no way on earth that you are going to get these police force away from the stranglehold of the state.
Well put, Brijesh, and that's a story we are going to be following after this discussion. The fact that the long-awaited police reforms and where they are today in 2024, nearly 3 decades after the Supreme Court gave its verdict. But that's all we have time for this evening, gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Jain, Brijesh. Thank you. Story that we keep tracking. Prime Minister Modi has become the first ever Indian Prime Minister to visit Ukraine. He's possibly also the first Indian Prime Minister to travel into a war zone. Now, coming to the subject of his visit, Ukraine. India and Ukraine have had a mixed relationship. The relationship has been tempered by the shadow of Russia. But nevertheless, both countries have had a robust defense tie-up, particularly in areas like aircraft, the AN-32 engines, warship engines for the Indian Navy. Ukraine has provided us support for overhauling not just the AN-32 fleet of aircraft, but also the Indian Navy's frontline warships. Ukrainian companies have also provided nuclear fuel and technology to India. So the questions that we're asking today are, what more is there in the pipeline? Will the India-Ukraine defense relationship get a new fillip after this visit? I'm joined by my colleague Deepak Badana in the studio, and joining us from the UAE's Air Commodore Ashutosh Lal, former defense advisor to Ukraine. Air Commodore Lal, welcome to the News9 Plus show.
Thank you very much for having me on your show.
Thanks for joining us, Air Commodore Lal. And I want to start off by asking you, tell us what it was like being in Ukraine a decade ago when you were negotiating the AN-32 deal, the deal to upgrade over 100 frontline transport aircraft for the Indian Air Force. How critical was that deal for the IAF?
So thank you, Sandeep, for getting me over on this particular point. Let me just, try and put things into perspective. I bring you a ringside view as to what I saw over there, actually. I was there at Simferopol, that fateful December night when Crimea changed hands from Ukraine to Russia.
In 2014? Yes.
That's right. Courtesy Ambassador, our Ambassador, the then Ambassador, Mr. Raj Chandar, who's a leader par excellence and diplomat par excellence. He taught us and gave us the freedom to work, and that's what we saw. And to tell you that on the second attack, when it took place in February of 22, I again happened to be in Zaporozhye, the east of Ukraine, that particular fateful night. So I bring you the real ringside, the view on the whole thing, actually.
Yes.
Let me put this into the perspective of national perspective and national interest. It's about our country's national interest. And it's about any country's national interest, the way they follow their geopolitics and their foreign relations, and how we go about things, actually. Let me tell you, Sandeep, if you have had any bit of sunflower oil, you have a little bit of Ukraine inside you.
Yes.
So before the defense deals happened, there was much more happening between India and Ukraine. And whenever the countries were at these particular parties between Russia and Ukraine, India was balancing it well for its own national interest, which is doing it today as well. And this is where our Honorable Prime Minister's visit is very, very important, in particular, engineered by the Ministry of External Affairs. I'm sure this visit is a cornerstone in our turning, in our nation arriving on the entire scene over here. How do I say that? Would you recall any other leader in the world stage earlier which could access both sides? Russia, Europe, US, and anywhere else? Let me remind you, Madam Angela Merkel, she was the one with her East European legacy, was able to reach out to Mr. Putin as well as to the West and to try and build that equal balance which was required in this critical situation. I think after that, our Prime Minister, traveling both to Russia a week back and now to Ukraine, is the other grand leader who's emerging on the World Forum, who's able to talk to both the parties and be able to show how the balance can be developed, national interest can be pursued, diplomacy be continued, and the world can continue to progress without having to indulge in a bloodied battle and war.
Absolutely. Now is not the time for war, as the Prime Minister has mentioned. But one forgets the amount of agricultural produce that India has been importing from Ukraine, as Air Commodore Lal mentioned, Deepak, sunflower oil, of course, wheat. Ukraine is like literally the breadbasket of the world. Yeah. But what are the three companies that you've been tracking very closely, Deepak, when it comes to the defense relationship? I'm going to ask Air Commodore Lal this, but I'm going to ask you this because you've been tracking this story in the light of the Prime Minister's visit to Ukraine. What are the three Ukrainian companies the Indian military would be looking at very, very, very closely?
So there are three companies, and it's well that the Indian military is looking at them closely because they're right there at the front lines.
Yes.
So, number one is Motosik, which is in Zaporizhia.
Yes.
Right on the front lines.
Front line.
Now, Motosik is providing care for the engines for the Antonov 32s that we have.
Yes.
While the Antonovs themselves are being modernized by this state-owned enterprise called the Spets Export, Spetstech Export, which is based out of Kiev, again on the front line.
Yes.
Last we heard, the Russian army was right on the doorsteps.
Right.
Again. Then there's a third company, which is called Zoria Massproct. Now, Zoria Massproct produces turbine engines for over 130 different warships of the Indian Navy. So it's not just the Kolkata destroyers, it's the Talwar frigates.
20 frontline warships, Deepak, I must correct you. It's about 20,
130 engines are there.
Yes, 130 engines, and it's got 16 warships. Frontline warships are powered by the Zoria gas turbines, and 4 more are building. And in fact, the Delhi class and the Kolkata class that you see are powered by Ukrainian gas turbine engines. And I'm going to jump into my next question to Air Commodore Lal. Air Commodore Lal, when you were there, these 3 companies were on your table, these files with the names of these companies, whether it's Motosik, it's Antonov, and of course Zoria. How critical are these companies literally for the Indian defense platforms? Like 80% of the Indian Navy's frontline warships, 100 AN-32s powered by Ukrainian engines. All of this makes Ukraine automatically a frontline state as far as we are concerned to maintain these assets.
So let me get in this little bit of a correction here, Sandeep, that it is firstly Motosich, S-I-C-H, a small part. But the major part is that Motosich, along with a design house called Ivichenko Progress, which is the design house for the aero engines. Nearly 97 aero engine designs perfected to the date over there. Remember, they flew Mriya AN-225 for Russian space shuttle Buran. So there is a shared dependency in the entire conglomerate of Soviet Russia, which was there, of which India has been beneficial of 2 major things. AN-32 you brought out rightly, but also all the Russian helicopter engines largely which are flying in India ever since. From Mi-4s to Mi-8s to Mi-17s, Mi-26, Mi-25, 35, except the latest version of Mi-17 V5, which have the Klimov engine, which comes from Russia. Other engines have been from Ukraine, and they have been standing good for us for all our army supplies at high altitudes of mountains and everything else. You know about that. The fact of the matter is that it is our national interest that we have to safeguard. In fact, there is just a bit of a trivia I want to bring out to your notice. Zoria's engine vis-a-vis the aero engines, the gas turbines for the warships and the gas turbines for the aeroplanes. Slight subtle difference, which is very important actually. When you want to build a warship, you will have to first choose your engines. Then you'll have to choose the transmission. Now this engine transmission has to be quietened by technology. Then you build the ship around this, because the ship has to be very, very silent to the sonar of a submarine.
Yes.
So be that it may, in case of an aeroplane, you can make an aeroplane first, you can go ahead and develop an aeroplane, you can put a proven engine like you did in LCA and an engine under test over there, and then fly the aeroplane, prove your engine, and then move forward from there. So for Navy, it is even more critical that they have to forecast 20, 10, 15 years in advance that we will take this engine and therefore we will depend upon that. So that is our kind of a dependency that we are following as of now. Fact of the matter remains that Ukraine remains very, very important to our country. Not only from the defense point of view, there is pharma, there is grains, which you mentioned, but coming to the defense part per se itself, be rest assured that we are interested to see how we can benefit from Ukraine or from Russia or from anywhere else in terms of technology. Mind you, our Prime Minister has given us the mandate that it must happen make in India.
Absolutely.
We need to move forward in that direction. So we need to get the, sorry to interrupt, but I'm just saying one last point, that we need to get the expertise, the technology, the metallurgy, the know-how, the experience, and then try to work how our systems can come online. Whether it be it overall of an existing engine or development of a new engine or a new technology or a new direction, a new vector, or what can enable. Don't forget the Kursk episode is on right now, and the Ukrainian small drones and the swarm of drones is being talked about on the world stage. How much of an impact it's having on the war and the conflict itself is a separate issue altogether. But nonetheless, they're making a big splash in this pond for sure.
Absolutely. And, my last question to you, Commodore Lal, is that, what you just highlighted makes the case 10,000 times for Atmanirbhar Bharat. There can be no escaping that you have to be self-sufficient, especially when it comes to critical defense technologies like aircraft engines, gas turbines for your warships, because without engines, they're nothing but hunks of metal. But given the fact that we are in the situation that we are in today, that we made the decision of buying those Ukrainian gas turbines and getting the AN-32s and the engines with all of these aircraft, and they're going to be with us for the next 2 decades or so in frontline military service. As a professional, what is the short-term solution for these worries? Would it be for Indian companies to maybe try and buy the Ukrainian companies and possibly bring them here, train our experts, and then get joint ventures in India of the kind that has been discussed? Give us your thoughts on the way forward to insulate us from this potential fallout of conflict in Ukraine.
Thank you, Sandeep. Thank you for that question. But let me just bring in two examples here, very short examples. The entire ICBM force of Russia, SS-18, 21 till in that zone and range and numbers. Would you recall which is the design house which made these ICBMs? Yuzhnoye, the Ukrainian space design house. Also, lining the roaring aircraft carrier of our eastern neighbor, who's now in South China Sea, and our own second aircraft carrier. Would it surprise you that they are brothers, born on the same berth in the city of Mykolaiv on the Dead Sea? They came to us from a different routes, but they have the same
they have the same
lineage,
origin, absolutely, yes.
The same origin, the same design for that.
The same origin,
All
the
right.
same design, and the same spare parts.
Yes, spare parts as well. So having said that, if you now look at the entire thing, how is it possible for us to do these particular activities? Either we buy or we get induction. I just want to assure your viewers through your channel and through you is that right now a massive process is on to try and get this technology into India in an incremental manner. There are restrictions, there are limitations of adjusting. Be rest assured that our government's bodies are working very hard, and I know some of them, I don't want to speak about them on the camera, but the fact remains that they are working very hard in terms of Zoria, some facilities being set up here in India, in terms of Antonov and Ivachenko progress, something else happening over here in India. And we are moving forward in that particular directions. Well, the pace of it, I'm sure, will get benefited by our Honorable Prime Minister's visit to Ukraine, and he would get to see the same side. Everybody would understand how the shared interests are. An example comes to my mind, which is not from the defense. When I was there in 2014, would surprise you that China leased an area of Ukraine of the size of Belgium. And it built a deep sea port right next to it.
Right.
And carted all the produced over there from that particular area to China. You talk of food security. So this is how the entire concept is required to be evolved. And I want to assure you that right now it is happening, and right now perhaps it is getting accelerated, and all these components are going to come into factor, and we would see a better time for us. Maybe our DRDO, our design organizations, taking help from these design houses like Ivachenko Progress in sorting out issues which have been overhanging onto us, and making a fair progress on that particular direction. It will certainly have a large and a great impact towards Bharat and Atmanirbhar Bharat.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much, Commodore Lal, for revealing those under negotiation talks with Ivachenko, Motosik, if I pronounce it correctly, Zoria, and of course the Antonov Design Bureau. These are four of the main reasons that India and Ukraine have, a bond that's going to last several decades at least, Deepak. But thank you very much for joining us, Commodore Lal from UAE, and talking to us about this very critical visit being made by Prime Minister Modi fact that he's traveling into an active war zone, it's more than just talks of a ceasefire or peace, it's also India's national interests and certainly India's defense interests to explain. But thank you so much for joining us, Ekomdo Lal. Wish you all the very best. Blue skies as always.